Good morning, and once again, thank you for joining us here with the Capuchins for our little program, Good Morning, Good People. My name is Brother Simeon Gallagher. I've been a Capuchin for about 53 years, and this year I'm celebrating a Jubilee year, 50 years as a priest. And this is being recorded in our little chapel in our friary, St. Francis Friary here in Denver. I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to speak with you about this upcoming Feast of All Saints, because in my own life, down through the years, even as a child, this was a great feast day. I was educated by the Sisters of the Immaculate Heart of Mary in Philadelphia from kindergarten all the way through the 8th grade, women of great wisdom and knowledge, but also women of a good example, prayerful women. And we never finished a day of school as a youngster that we did not pack our little book bags and put them on the floor beside our desk, and Sister then would read something to us, usually from the lives of the saints, before we were sent home for the evening. And many of those stories that they read to me, have stayed with me all the way through the years. And to my amazement, I never thought when I was a youngster that I would end up actually finding myself in some of the places where these saints have lived, either in ancient times or in more modern times. Father Damien of Molokai, for example, and his incredible courage in going to work among the Hansen's patients in the island of Molokai in the Hawaiian Islands. I was invited to come for almost a whole summer and give retreats to Franciscan nuns who teach school and run hospitals out there. And I asked the sisters that if I came to do that work, would they arrange for me to visit Molokai, and particularly Kalapapa, the area where Father Damien worked. And that was all arranged for me, gratefully. And it was astounding for me, deeply moving for me, to find myself saying Mass in the little chapel in honor of St. Philomena, where Father Damien himself said Mass, and if I'm not mistaken, he actually built that little chapel. So the saints have always been very much a part of my life. And we remember them on All Saints Day because we learn from them ways of behaving and the challenges. But most importantly, they remind us of something that happened for many of us many, many years ago when we were merely infants, and that is our baptism. Because if we are to understand what baptism is all about, we are initiated into a journey that we engage in all the way through our lives. And this is a journey that eventually brings us home to God. And what we bring home, hopefully, are the fruits of our baptism, which is holiness. We are to interact with people, circumstances, events, achievements, and setbacks all the way through our life, and find in that multiplicity of engagements and the pluralism of the world and so forth in which we live, an opportunity to respond more deeply to the grace of our baptism, and we would become holy. Maybe not beatified people or canonized people as official saints, but nonetheless, that's why the Church, I think, gives us every day a saint, maybe a couple of saints, and in some cases groups of saints, to remind us of the grace of our baptism, that we are not cast out on life in an aimless kind of way, but that we are baptized into a life of grace, a life of prayer, and a life that orients us towards an eternal future. And these saints are important. We are grateful because John Paul II beatified or canonized over 1,000 of these new people, some of them quite recently, like Mother Teresa, so that we would have heroes and heroines in the modern world that would inspire us. And I think of this in particular for our young people. And Pope Francis has already beatified several very young people because there's no heroes or heroines, unfortunately, that many of our young people can relate to. Their sports characters often end up very disappointing. Their recording stars and so forth, their movie stars always unfortunately turn out to be a great disappointment as well. And as a result, these kids don't have much of an image of what it means to be self-donating, to overcome tendencies to narcissism, and to be involved with people that are not as blessed and as fortunate as themselves in helpful kinds of ways. Pope Francis, as I'm sure you are aware, has introduced a whole new category in terms of canonization. He calls it heroic sanctity, not martyrs or the founders and foundresses of religious communities, but these people that have been willing to sacrifice their own futures in order to take care of aging parents, in order to tend to the care of perhaps a sibling who is struggling with Down syndrome. These are not people who have never been invited to marriage or any other kind of life, but they have chosen to go in a different direction, and he has honored them and draws the church's attention that holiness is to be found next door. Pope Francis's beautiful little letter, Gaudete et Exultate, on holiness in the modern world, is all a reinforcement of the importance of the saints and the lives of the saints and the impact of the saints. They have always had an impact on my life, and I'm thankful to God that the sisters nurtured that, nourished that in all of us when we were kids. I want to draw your attention before I conclude here to two very helpful little aids that enable us to become more and more familiar with the saints. As you know, the Dominicans publish every month a marvelous little booklet called the Magnificat. You can subscribe to this. It's not very expensive. You can subscribe to this, and every day we're offered the prayers of the Mass. We're offered morning prayer and evening prayer, but also there's someone writing something about the saint of the day. And I must tell you, I've been quite amazed to discover in reading this little Dominican publication that there are saints that go back way into ancient times and say so much in a practical and challenging way for us who are living in the modern age, even though they lived in ancient times. And they are mentioned. And then the Dominicans have published this, but the Benedictines, not the top, the Dominicans, but they have published now another little wonderful daily aid called Give Us This Day. And this, you can get both of these here in a small or in a large copy. And I want to encourage you to subscribe. Go online and look up Magnificat. Go online and look up Give Us This Day and take a subscription to one or the other. I take both of them because the difference is that the Dominicans reach back into the ancient saints of the Church and help us to see their relevancy today. And the Benedictines zero in on contemporary theologians and contemporary writers and help us to see the application of holiness to our lives today. Of course, we are reminded by the Second Vatican Council that this grace of our baptism, the journey to holiness, is not just reserved for people in Capuchin habits or people with veils on their head or Roman collars around their neck. The Council reminds us that this is a universal call and that all of us, because we are baptized, are called to this kind of a future, a life of holiness with God forever. So I'm grateful that I've been asked to give this little reflection this morning, and I encourage you to teach your children. May I also say, if you are a young couple and you are expecting youngsters, give the kids a name of a saint. Don't give them a name named after a weather system or a building on the campus where you went to college. Give the kids the name of a saint so that that saint can become an intercessor for the child's life, all the way through the child's life, or that person can be a source of inspiration and challenge for the kid as they journey in their own path to holiness. Two wonderful little aids, and that the kid would be named after a saint, I think is an additional contribution. All right, so I thank you for joining us. We pray for you, as you know, here in the chapel, absolutely every day. Our volunteers, our benefactors, all the people that have asked us to pray for them. I know you can't see this, but outside the chapel wall, there is a list of all of the intentions called to our attention, and there isn't a day that we don't remember you. And I hope that that's a source of consolation for you. And may I ask with the friars to please remember us in your prayers for the ups and downs of our lives as well as for our ministry. God bless you, and thank you for joining us once again.